What year were you BBE? Alumni?
2011.
Okay. Did we share a class?
2012, I think.
Did we cross paths?
I'm actually not sure. I think we did. Yeah, I think we did. Welcome everyone to the conversation
Sorry.
today. That's okay. So welcome to the Virtual Design Jam series that we're running. So we've got event 3 and we're talking cooperatives, and we're lucky to be joined by Catherine Cunningham from Earthworker Cooperative, who's going to be talking us through the model, the inspiration and the story of Earthworker Cooperative. Thanks for joining us today, Catherine.
Thank you for having me, Scott.
No worries. And we were just talking about alumni because we were both RMIT BBE alumni. I'm just trying to think back. So Alan Peck was my marketing teacher. Peter Christo. These are shout outs to all the old crew.
Yeah. Well, both of those are my faves.
Oh, perfect.
Christo were my faves, definitely.
And I actually, so Afreen planted the seed of social enterprise in my mind.
And she's still there doing it.
She is, absolutely. Yeah. And Afreen, if you're listening, I'd love to have you on the on the pod.
Yeah.
So we came through this program at RMIT. I actually came into it not really knowing a lot about entrepreneurship back in 2005. How did you come into that program, Catherine?
A friend of mine's brother was doing it and he said, your brain would be great during that course. So I wrote him this amazing application, and it was a challenge. It says, if you'll take me, I'll do it. And so then I found out in that first semester that the person who normally did the filtering of the applications didn't do it. It was actually the assistant, and she just put them into piles of she'd be great. She didn't know it was so good. So I totally got in on the skin of my teeth because I didn't have any business knowledge at all. But my experience with BBE was that through all of that conversation about entrepreneurship, no one once whispered the word cooperatives. And it was really disappointing. And when I look back at it now, entrepreneurship is only ever framed in the context of a singular hero and the singular person, maybe a partnership, but mostly as the singular state. And I guess, for me, cooperatives is a totally different relationship with an entrepreneurship than say where RMIT kept it and still has it. And most business schools still have it. Yeah, entrepreneurship is the singular place in the company structure. Yeah, and I think challenging that notion of entrepreneurship in the social sector, but recognising you're still allowed to do business. You're still allowed to make great money. Yeah, yes. You're allowed to make great money, but you can do it collectively. You can do it as a group, and building common wealth, building wealth together is actually, it's a really foreign consciousness because our cultures always had us, doing it for ourselves and looking after our own, but rarely do we have an idea that we could bring prosperity to everyone with the actions that we take.
Wow. See, I feel like we were sitting in the same class because that's a lot of the information that I picked up. Yes, there wasn't any talk of cooperatives, but I think my kind of desire to be socially innovative or a social entrepreneur was to share that wealth, or to share the definition of wealth, not just being money, but it being almost like the opportunity that people get to do things differently and share in that opportunity. So, wow, yeah, I can see that was a common interest that we gained from RMIT. So thank you for RMIT. And so Earthworker Cooperative, to jump straight in, what is Earthworker and what do you do?
Okay, so Earthworker is an incredible place. It's been around for nearly 20 years. It's the space between the union movement and the environmental movement. It's the actual state that says just transition is the only way forward. We've got to move out of all of these places that have been doing damage to the planet, but we've got to do it bringing everyone with us. Yeah, that transition needs to be made in a way that's just, and we need to transform I think a part of what Earthworkers' intention is to transform the nature of business and work itself, yeah. So no jobs on a dead planet is essentially, that horrible thing that the Liberals do, which is what actually just government does, where it says, oh, we have to sacrifice the environment for the jobs. It's like, no, you don't. Like, you really don't. And then this Earthworker conversation came from some great, incredible people. Dave Karen is an amazing man, and I remember sitting in front of him for the first time I heard his vision and his possibility. And they're very deeply inspired by the Mondragon model, and recognising, Mondragon is an incredibly huge expression of what worker co-ops could be. In large scale, they have a $17 billion turnover per annum. Like, they are an incredibly huge connection of cooperatives. And they're in the Basque region in Spain, and they are basically what they have is all these lots and lots of cooperatives that have they're all jointly owned by the one company, and that one company is owned by everybody who works on those. So the Mondragon model, which is a very similar model that we're looking at building here in Australia, is our intention. So far, Earthworker has Red Gum, which is a cleaning cooperative, which cleaners are highly exploited people, and so they're a green cleaning crew. They do people's homes, and they do offices. We've got Earthworker Energy Manufacturing Cooperative, which is down in Morwell. That's an exciting venture that's just turning a corner. We just signed a deal with Community Equity Housing Cooperative, which is exciting. We're going to start putting our solar hot water systems, which is a tank and a heat pump in and sometimes evacuated tubes. But we're doing, I think these are all heat pumps, into social housing, which is just exciting transformation of work. So we're taking on new employees, which is, it's the next, we've been working that juju, that particular factory consciousness that's where I started 4 years ago with Earthworker. We were moving all the equipment we had to do the work, to do the building of tanks was in one huge factory, and we were shifting it across a driveway into the other factory. And I happened to, hooked into Earthworker that week, and they said, sure, we've got this great working bee on. I'm going, okay, I'll come do that. So I just started by pulling my sleeves up and getting in there, which is definitely my way, is to get in the mix. But there's more that are brewing right now. We're just about to see the launch of a constructive cooperative. It's a construction cooperative. So these guys are plumbers, electricians, and carpenters, some just general labour, and they want to really reframe the relationship of work in construction. And then Dave and Colin and others are working on Powering Victoria, which is a cooperative that's looking to do kind of a whole around power in the homes, but also in the new builds, like the power relationship, how new buildings and how those buildings are being built in relationship to power, full stop. So, and also the environmental impact of new builds and how we can shift that.
Wow, I just, there's so much to love about what you just said then, and I think even just that last part of with the construction cooperative, like that, to me, that makes a lot of sense. I come from a family of electricians, carpenters. I was going to say sparkies, but no, they are electricians.
I think I nearly said.
I'm just showing my lack of knowledge for the trades, but they talk a lot about the challenges in that space, and even I think that concept of, down here in Warragul, we've got about 5,000 new houses being built in the next 3 years, but the concept of energy is still the same. So I'm not sure why they're not thinking more advanced, why they aren't, why the houses aren't generating their own electricity. But that might be another conversation for another day. So for you, Catherine, to get involved with Earthworker, what do you see as being the value of the cooperative model?
Well, I guess I brought my business of entrepreneurship and I guess what we did learn at RMIT was the feasibility analysis and the business planning. And to be honest, the beauty that is Earthworker are environmentalists and unionists, and most of them don't even like business. No, they like making things happen, yeah. And they haven't. And to me, what I was bringing was a skill set, and others. I don't want to paint that picture. There are people in Earthworker who have business skills as well, but I wanted to bring that startup space. And I have kind of dubbed myself startup coordinator. So it's been fun to work with. And there's another little gardening co-op that's starting to brew as well. So to me, reframe that question. I've lost the question again. There was
the value of the cooperative
model. Sorry. The cooperative model. Look, essentially, what the cooperative model does is it says that we don't, when normal business is done, it's done from a top down generally, even if it's a CEO that reports to a board, it's still a top down kind of mechanism. And that way of doing business, often that model and that ownership, it's extractive essentially by nature. Whereas when the cooperative model, it's built from the ground up. So everybody who starts the co-op, the founders, they all begin with an equal share, and then as employees begin, that equal share is they still all got one share, like one member, one vote, one share, yeah? And that's how the shares, and that always stays equal. So if there's started with 5 and now there's 20, there's only 20 shares, yeah? And everyone's vote is valid, yeah? Once they become a member. So you can and should put a little bit of a caveat in there and let probation happen. So employees start as employees and usually have a good 3-6 month probation to make sure they're the right fit for the co-op. Because once they become a member, you need to be really sure about them as members.
Yep.
But so to me, that the model means that everyone who's doing the work owns the work. Yeah, you own the quality of the work. Yeah, you own the content of the work. You set your own KPIs. How's that for a theory? Like
sounds
KPI,
good to me.
I know, right? KPIs that are handed on down from on high often make no sense because they're not written by people who are doing the work, and they don't have. And there's, I mean, when we were interviewing for Earthworker Energy Manufacturing, one of the questions I was asking was, can you imagine a workplace that has no carrots and sticks? Because that's how we function. We don't have any managerial carrots and sticks that make people do their jobs, right? You have to want to get your job done because your job is, it makes everyone else's job happen. Yeah, so you're all woven together, and you all need to keep, stepping up and rising up to do the work because, it's all of your livelihoods there at stake. And so there's some trust that needs to get built, and it's not a trust that comes easy. I think our culture is not really well training us for trust, and the model itself can seem, and I mean, to be honest, the model's quite foreign because our culture has no reflection. Like for the amount of experience, the actual reality of cooperatives in this country, we don't ever see it in there's never been a co-op member in Neighbours or in Home and Away. We've never seen the cooperative model in reflection, yeah, in a TV series. So it's not a reality that any of us have really had before. So the model itself, essentially, it turns labour flips the capital, so capital serves labour, not labour serving capital. So instead of human beings being chewed up and spat out by the business itself is in service to the human beings who are doing the work. So the model is no different in lots of ways than company law. It's the same law structure that companies have. It's the same liability separation. So a company vessel is a law structure that limits liability for the people who own it. And the cooperative vessel is the same law structure that limits liability for the people who own it. And that's actually, quite simple. Quite simply, the ownership is for a cooperative, everybody, and the ownership for companies is the ones at the top. So that's really essentially what you've flipped in the cooperative model. It's the same business as business as business. You're still doing business in that, but you tend to be far more transparent in what's happening in your books. Everybody knows what's happening. It has to have to know what's in the book. In fact, financial literacy, I think, is a really important part of cooperative education. I think it's important that everyone in the room knows how and why you're making the decisions you're making in your business thinking, yeah? And so that one person or two people in the room don't sort of they think they know, so they'll take the direction. It's like, well, actually, hold on a second. It's still one person, one vote. You still need to, you've got a couple of charismatic founders in there who've got all the ideas and they're going to make it all happen. Then you've got to be careful with that because heroes don't serve. Yeah, that hero consciousness doesn't serve the group. Yeah, those founders need to make more room and bring everybody up with them. Yeah, make sure they've really explained and are understood by everybody for why these decisions look like this or look like that, or why those directions, why that strategy. So there's lots of moving parts to the function of an actual cooperative business, but the cooperative model itself, in actual fact, as a business option structure, is actually really simple legal entity, no different than a company.
Is it? I looked it up and it scared me away. I think so. 2019 and a couple of local people here in Warragul were exploring a cooperative, and we registered Farming Our Future as a cooperative, which is a project down here in Gippsland, Catherine. And it was, oh my gosh, it was like a rapid learn, because I looked at all of the forms and the paperwork, and it scared me away. And I just thought, oh my gosh, I've got to look at this another time. And then I procrastinated. And then like a month later, we finally got to doing it. But it is really fascinating why it doesn't have more airtime, and why business schools don't talk more about it as a model of the future. Like it really is.
And I think right. I mean, we've just Earthworker. We've been investing time and energy in education at the moment, and so we built a 10-week course we piloted last year, which was starting a worker co-op. And at the end of it, which I worked with Ellie, who's one of the founders for Red Gum, and I really wanted to extract some of her tacit knowledge, because she was a founder. She walked the path, built this great co-op, and which was still really strong and still, survived the first wave of the pandemic. It was still really strong. So we used that first kind of lockdown or second lockdown to work pretty hard, and we built this delivery, and we did this 10-week course. At the end of that 10-week course, I realised that's a bit too much. So I realised, no, 10 weeks is too much. So so what I've done now, I've taken that work and I've translated it into 3 different products. So an intro, which is 6 weeks. And then a boot camp, which is 9 sessions. Yeah. Yep. So the intro just gives us the why, the what, and the how, and then a little bit of relationship to feasibility analysis and business ideas. So that's an intro. And then the boot camp is like, right, let's get your rules done. Let's get your business plan sorted. Let's make an action plan. Let's make sure you know how to run your meetings and, formulations and all that thing. So by the end of the boot camp, you should be ready to go and actually start your co-op. And so that was a great thing. And the third thing is induction training. So I realised what we built in this 10-week course was actually some stuff we can use for Earthworker energy manufacturing and for Red Gum for induction training, and assisting our co-ops to bring in new members. Because it's an ongoing learning experience. And we do have to challenge. I think that's the first thing to challenge in Australia, is that learning is still not easy or fun in our culture. Like, it's that horrible thing you survived at high school, and if you survived it, you don't ever want to go back. Where in actual fact, if you haven't healed the learning wounds and found yourself on the other side of that, you're where you actually enjoy learning again, then co-op's going to be harder for you. But I mean, it's not impossible. I just think that that's one of the things you need to shift when you step into the co-op, is that it is an ever learning space, and we're still learning how to run them in Australia. The UK and the US are, a good decade or maybe 2 decades ahead of us. They're much more prevalent and a lot more across. We have got one really strong, or actually one over in Adelaide as well. carer models. So the caring industry is absolutely perfect for the cooperative capacity model, because it's just, if you've, particularly the councils that are moving away because they've been pretty much told to stop delivering the in-house aged care and disability care.
Yep.
So for those humans who have been doing that care work for decades, being able to step into or cross it, I mean, as a third option. Actually, their only option is, go and work for the company that won the tender, if you're lucky. But you lose all that relationship you did have, because the company, by law, a company must maximise profit. That's its only purpose. Yeah. That's actually by law in this country and every other country. An A company, unless you're a B Corp, who's actually stepped across that threshold and said, no, we're going to give our companies legal other reasons to exist. But the A Corp, the whole purpose of the organisation is to earn money and to maximise profits. And so, like we saw with the ABC in the childcare, when a company takes, control of care work, it reduces care work to the apple slice.
Yeah.
And anyone who's done care work knows you can't do it like that. Like, you need to be, and the people who do the work need to be in charge of the work. So teaching, so we have a cooperative in New South Wales called This Cooperative Life. And they've got, hopefully we're going to work with them and their independent managed teams to start building co-ops, start building independent managed teams for This Cooperative Life in Victoria. So, which is another beautiful thing about co-ops, is they don't necessarily scale up, they scale out.
Yes, and that's what I was just going to ask you.
Yeah.
Perfect.
How do they grow? So we don't have to go up and make everything bigger. We go out and duplicate our processes. Yeah. Nice. So that you've got independently managed teams who definitely come together. You're all for the same thing. You all have the same purpose. But you just don't necessarily, 300 people don't have to do it together. So 300 people don't have to make decisions together. Not fun for anyone. So you keep your teams at kind of 10, 12 people, but they all feed into the centre. Yeah. So that concentric circle, there's something in the centre, and it's this place of principle-centred leadership. Yeah. Back in the old days of Steve Covey, who wrote that book eons ago. But principle-centred leadership means that it's not a person, it's not a magnanimous, charismatic human, it's this purpose. So, this cooperative life is, purpose is to do good care work, to be, to have secure employment. And that in that process, and because they are managing, so This Cooperative Life, they have nationally managing their NDIS conversation, which is important. And so having one conversation with the government rather than 30. You've got 10 little, 300 people and in groups of 10, that's 30 groups. Yeah. So rather than having 30 conversations with NDIS, you have one conversation with NDIS.
Absolutely. And it makes so much sense in my mind hearing you explain it like that, because I do see that. I see what the company model offers versus that flat that flat structure as well, which also provides, I suppose, that continuity of the message that goes through to the minister if there's a collective voice being forwarded through to say, hey, we want to talk about this or we want to talk about that, which is really, really important. And just on that notion around the cooperative in the care space, there's probably a couple of other, like you mentioned before about the construction space. There's some real opportunity for cooperatives to be the future of work for some of these industries moving forward that people haven't even considered yet, isn't there?
Yeah. And to me, really, there's very few industries cooperatives don't work. Like even gamers, like in game design, like all that computer work. There's some great industries actually people building stuff in the gamers field, because that you get a group of people who really love working together, and you give them the control and the capacity, the creative capacity to own their work. Again, really often extracted talent by big companies. Yeah, they rarely get to own their work. The other one, I mean, one of my partners is a mathematician, and to me, mathematicians and scientists are another highly exploited group of humans. Yeah, they rarely get to see the fruit of their labour. They don't. They don't often get to. Yeah, I mean, and their silos that they get put in. I mean, they don't get to cross pollinate often either. Whereas, yeah, I think hopefully. I mean, the care industries that are definitely food and any of that space, like all the restaurants and cafes and catering companies. And I'd love to see co-ops move into like groups of people from countries like refugees who kind of found themselves, together. But they've all got great cooking skills. So a co-op model brought into that, enabling them to do fantastic catering, to do great service in that way. So they don't necessarily, while they're all still learning English, because that's definitely one of the refugee blocks, is that place of language. So assisting each other and themselves in that process of developing those English skills while they're still working, they're still owning their work. Yeah. Absolutely. And obviously artistry and any form of artistry. Yeah, I mean, cooperatives for artists, like groups who co-own galleries and co-own, big working spaces. And yeah, there's some great opportunities because shared resources is the other part. Yeah, it's like you've got a dozen carpenters who can share their like, I mean, there's a fantastic group of architects in Europe as a co-op, and they build the most magnificent buildings as a group of people because of the way they trust each other and the way they work together, and they've been working together for quite some time. And there's something about the way that they're woven together because they're a co-op that they just bounce off each other so well. No one needs to be the hero. Yeah, that's that thing. Like, no one needs to be the hero. Everyone wants to see everyone win. And so having an organisation that has no competition within it, means nice. Has an idea, right? No one needs to big note themselves. No one's climbing up a bloody ladder. Yeah. I mean, pushing people down as they go, right? So that's as a model for working and living in the world. That's a really powerful notion. Yeah.
Absolutely.
And there's Steve Covey's son actually built a body of work called The Speed of Trust, which is, it's functioning from that thing. It's that notion that when we have trust, the higher the trust, the quicker the process, the cheaper the time it takes to get from somewhere to somewhere. So in organisations, if they stopped all of the petty back end 3 meetings that have to happen because one meeting was the one in the front, and all the other meetings they have to go on behind it. It's like, I mean, that's definitely one of the beauties of co-ops, is that you just slice away the middle management and you go, no need to play. Like, you just don't have to do it. Like, you don't have to do it to yourself, let alone each other. Like, no one has to live there.
But it sounds like, for me, it sounds really appealing. Like, I often talk about the narcissism with entrepreneurs and the solo entrepreneur kind of, making that transitional ego journey about not just about themselves, but about the venture. If it's got a social impact, you've got to take that ego out of the scenario altogether to make it about the impact. And it sounds like it's a lot easier to do that with that cooperative model, because you've essentially got people that are on the same page. Their agendas are out in the open, and then they're working towards the same collective purpose. And last week's panel talked about purpose. So we had Jenny Harding, Nick Rose, Tom Dawkins, Kim Newen, all people of purpose. And the collective voice that they all agreed on was where the cooperative sits in the social traders registration right now, because it's for some reason it's on 2 sides, but it should be on one of the other sides, because of that that point that you just made about that collective decision making being very rare. Because it's even like, we see design by committee, it's very rare that the committees all agree on the same things. But when you've got people working in that cooperative environment, it sounds like that's an easier scenario to navigate.
Yeah. If that committee is all in the same, like if they've all got the same power, yeah, that's the key, I reckon, is power. Like if you're not playing power games, if no one has power to wield over each other, then you're in a different conversation as far as the business is concerned. Oh, you've frozen. Hello? Hi. Am I still here? Are you still there? Oh, no. Are you still there, Scott? Hmm. Woo! I can't hear you. Can you hear me? You can hear me? Excellent. You seem to be muted.
There we go. So I was just transitioning over from an internet connection challenge. I'm not going to mention the provider.
We did whisper the word power. So
Damn it.
Yeah. It's all about the power.
Sorry, Catherine. So you were talking about the oh gosh, where were we?
We were in that conversation about how when you don't, that design by committee.
Ah, yes.
To me, to design by committee can be, painful, yeah, and consensus can be painful, yeah, if we don't all have the same agenda. Now, if the same agenda is we want our business to succeed, yeah, we want our work to happen, we want our business to succeed. It's actually a really simple agenda. Like it's very simple, and you're all in the same boat because you're all in the same direction. You're all rowing at the same time. Yeah. So consensus actually becomes looking for the most effective solution, not necessarily I'm right and you're wrong. Yeah. So you enter consensus without an ego, without the need to be right. Yeah. You just keep chewing on something collectively until you can all feel you have the right answer, because it's the one that resonates the most with all of us. And we all feel it. We go, bang, that's it. Good. What's next? Yeah. And that as a decision-making process for consensus, that's a really, really, that keeps some speed, nice and quick. You're on target, you're getting things done. So if you can build, like one of the things we do in the teaching is we build a daily meeting space, a weekly meeting space, monthly, seasonally and yearly, yeah, and you those are the as per getting things done. That's the runway, that's the project level, that's all of the recognizing that decisions need to be made at all the levels at all times. Yeah, you're one group of people who need to be participating with those decisions, so you need to have the right time to have the right conversation with having the right results to that conversation. Yeah, so you don't want to be talking about something at a purpose level in your weekly meeting. Weekly meetings just to check in on projects, like to see where everything's at. Daily meetings, what are you doing today? Yeah, it's a 10-minute scrum. It's get shit done. Like everyone knows where everyone is, and bang. I mean, can be done on the phone, doesn't have to be done face to face, yeah, but it's a quick check-in. Everyone knows what everyone's doing today, and how sometimes I've only got half a day in blah blah blah, so I've got half a day for admin, so if you need me, I'm here. So depending on the work, yeah, and depends on the business on how that all functions. But to me, that's the power of trust and on purpose. And you don't have that design by committee because it's an easy choice.
Absolutely, yeah, that's a good point. So that I want to talk to you about so you've designed the role for yourself as a startup coordinator, and how that, because like for me in the conversations around social innovation, like that's exactly that. You've identified the gap. You're making a change to how things happen in a positive way. And how like, so you mentioned about the energy projects that are now coming out. Are you do you see that as being a major growth for Earthworker with supporting other co-ops to come on board, or do you see it as a bit of an internal kind of entrepreneurship type opportunity?
Probably a bit of both. So I do see there's definitely room for other Earthworker co-ops, other people to come on board and bring their co-op consciousness with them. And the education I built is to be not just for Earthworker. Like the education I built is for, Ellie and I actually built it in the ACFI space. So that's a pre-accredited
Oh, wow.
We built it in that model because ACFI is far more interested in learning than it is compliance. So we've got a 20 hours, that's the 6-week course, and the 40 hours, which is the boot camp. And I've got a little meeting on Friday, hopefully, with a group of course coordinators through a number of neighbourhood houses, just, cracking the ice on the conversation about what a co-op is and why introduction to a cooperative could be great in their neighbourhood house. So, and I mean, we do hope to deliver that education in union spaces. Also, I'd love to deliver it in high school spaces. I think young people really would resonate quite well with this model if they were given it as an option, if they knew about it. So, again, I mean, even entrepreneurship, even that kind of thinking in schools as well is not as common as it could be. But that, it's next. The next chapter, I think, for Earthworker is definitely more cooperatives that are brewing, but then also this education. And we would like to build. When we have some, been RMIT at the Knowledge Week just happened.
Yep. This
year. They ran an innovative sprint,
right?
And I pitched for a co-op incubator.
Because
we all know what business incubators do for small business, but the idea of building one for cooperatives hasn't happened yet. So Earthworker, it's definitely what I champion, and I'm on the board at Earthworker, and I do champion the education space quite a bit, and this space of building an incubator which is a bit of a headquarters for Earthworker as well, but then somewhere to have co-op board game nights, because I think there's some great. We've got, I don't know if anyone's seen the copy of a game called Coopoly. So no. That's a reframe of Monopoly. Wow. Into a cooperative model. That's a great game. But then even if pandemic's a little too soon, but that's a co-op game. Zombicide's co-op game. And there's actually a new one, Earth Rising, which is kickstarting right now, which is actually based on the donor economics model. And that's a great co-op game as well. And so to me, building nights once a month for playing games and getting your ideas, and then having a bit of a pitch space, having some resources and library and that sort of space, it's definitely what we'd like to do with an incubator. And I mean, I guess if we put the incubator in a city, then we've got an opportunity that anyone can come and go. So and then as we start delivering this intro work, and then and we may find that the intro lives at the neighbourhood house and the boot camp lives at our incubator. We may find that that's actually the balance that we find that will be the most effective. We're just having thought exercises. I would like to, if I can, the boot camp. I don't know if you've read Sand Talk.
No.
Okay, so Sand Talk by Tyson Yunkaporta is a pretty powerful book, and it was written. I got my hands on it last year. I think it came out at the beginning of last year, and the last chapter is his call to action, which is: odds are no one's going to give Australia back to the Indigenous people. That's the odds. So perhaps the Australian people could also become custodians. Maybe we could do it that way. Maybe the Indigenous people could teach, and they are, because that's who they are. They could share. We could become custodians too of this beautiful country. And the last chapter is about that. It's about recognising their protocols and Indigenous knowledge, and recognising how for thousands and thousands of years, not only did they live with the earth, they lived with each other, and they lived with each other really well. Yeah. So there's this beautiful body of work called Respect, Connect, Reflect, and Direct. And it's a very powerful understanding of what it takes to be a group of humans all in the same intention. Yeah. So that's what I framed the boot camp around that. That first week is working with respect, which is our values and our rules. The second is connect, which is how we function as a group in our relationships of heart. The third is reflect, is how we build our shared body of knowledge, like how we're functioning from our thinking, what our thinking actually is. And then the direct, which is what are we going to do? What are the knowledge? So acting on that shared knowledge in ways of doing that are negotiated by all. So when I read it, I've gone, that's how you run a co-op. Like, that is the most succinct way I could think of. And it's interesting because I've already put it to Tyson Yunkaporta, the author, and I said, I was exploring the idea of doing a doctorate around it. And I'm like, the more I got into that doctorate conversation, the more I've gone, nah, I don't want to play doctorate games. It looks like insanity. It looks like insanity to have there. But if a doctorate came along and enabled me to do this experimentation, yeah? Because how do we teach Australians who've been so raised in a petri dish of narcissism and individualism and looking after only themselves? How do you teach the Western white mind to get its shit together enough to function as a group? Yeah. So.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, that's the plan.
And I was just thinking, sorry, just to go on with that a bit more, the like that cooperative model. So I've recently kind of been introduced to the Gunai Kurnai cooperative model, and then also my people back in New Zealand, the Rongoma Wahinian co-op that exists for our whānau, and it is like these co-op models are there, but for some reason, and this is what this is probably a small part of a much bigger discussion. I don't understand why they don't sound like what you've been talking about. Or for my whānau anyway, it sounds very different. Maybe it's because it's a different governance model in a different country with a different treaty. But the model that you just spoke about, like, wow, that could really empower future generations to want to embrace something that gives them something back that they can not just wear on the back as a pat on the back, but they get to wear it as a sign of respect for what we have in this country.
Definitely. Yeah. It's been exciting. Yeah, I was nice. Tyson actually, he said, essentially he's just said, it's a great idea. I did ask if, because his design lab at Deakin University, they've got this incredible Indigenous knowledge design lab, which is and his podcast, The Others, like, it's just epic conversations taking place there, and it's such great work. And Indigenous knowledge, if we want to know how to get out of where we are, it's there. To me, it lives there. It lives in paying attention. It lives in understanding. It lives in showing deep respect for peoples who've lived with this earth for thousands and thousands of years across the globe. Like, whichever Indigenous group it is who've lived with the land that you're living on, then, they've got something. They know something that we could be with. If we stopped the game of who dies with the most toys wins, because that's a stupid game. Stupid game. It's not a useful game. It's not a game that anyone wins. Nobody wins. That's a really stupid game.
No, exactly. And that, I just read an article recently where they talked about not only do they leave those toys, but they pass those toys on to the next generation that does exactly the same thing again and again. And then the wealth grows, and then it doesn't get dispersed; it gets centralized. And before we know it, what just happened? So
and she can't afford billionaires. She can feed the whole planet. The whole planet can feed this earth could feed everyone who's living on it, but we just can't sustain billionaires.
No.
They're the only mechanism. They're the only thing we can't do.
And so I would be keen to kind of touch back on the conversation we had earlier about the energy co-op and the work that you're doing in that space, Catherine, because so over the past couple of series, we've touched on renewable energy. We haven't touched on like particular parts. We've kind of scooted around, the reason why we need more than just kind of solar, more than just hydro, wind. How do you see that playing out with Earthworker and the hot water services and the powered by solar?
So it's a both. Earthwork Energy Manufacturing, we manufacture a tank, and our tank is a highly insulated tank with a recycled covering, which makes it very safe, very protected, and pardon me, it can travel much better. Apparently the plumbers really love it because it doesn't dent like all the other hot water tanks that just dent. But the other thing, I guess, the other relationship we have with Grid Edge, which is about batteries and battery and storage. So to me, having your individual home sorted as much, and recognizing that the tank is part of your storage, storing power in your hot water, it's part of what your storage is, and so by using a heat pump on a solar array, so if you've got a solar panel array and you run your heat pump when your heat's on, then you're actually storing, that's another version of storage, right? You're storing that power in your hot water tank. All so right. It's about becoming, more and more relationship with power itself in your home and how you use it, and there's definitely, the heat pumps come with a mechanism that you can then follow the sun a bit if you need to tweak it for seasons, and then there's, to me, also Earthworker, not just energy manufacturing. So when in manufacturing, we focus on we manufacture the tank, but then we pair it with the top end, the best heat pump in the country, and then and the solar, the evacuator tubes. We don't actually sell solar panels or that setup, but we are working with Grid Edge to work towards manufacturing the plug and play unit, which is their batteries unit. So they've got a battery plug and play units, which is much easier. So you don't have to be, doesn't have to be installed by a solar electrician. They are pretty much a simple system that so if you've got your already got it on there, then it builds a different way of being relationship. The other product that we're actually working on is a alternative to the diesel and generator. So it's an array of solar panels on a bank of the Fiam batteries with a little system set up, so that basically if you are, even if you've like whether you've got a festival out in the bush, or if you've got, if you even just want to work on, if you don't want any fumes, you're working in a city, so working with a solar array for your power and your power tools makes for a really different story.
Wow, that's pretty innovative, and I've just opened up in the chat if we've got any questions for people, just to send them through, because we've come back to the conversation around the innovation of Earthworker and the way that you can the Earthworker is going to be building these future products through the cooperative model, which I can't help but get excited when I hear about stories like this. And I think I gave a bit of background at the start that I kind of stumbled across Dan in Mall, Dan Sultan. Dan
Musil.
Dan Sultan is our Indigenous singer, famous artist, Dan Musil, who, I think we attended an event that was to do with the smart specialisation energy distribution that they were focusing on there for the transition in Gippsland. So for anyone that's not aware of the Latrobe Valley Authority, they're the authority that's in charge of the transition for Gippsland away from the coal-fired power station at Hazelwood that shut down in 2016. And it was like these mines had kind of come to Gippsland to hear what was happening. And then a year later, these really exciting business models were starting. And it was really critical at the time, because I really saw there was a lot of, I think, leaning on current and existing knowledge in the area rather than trying to bring in new information and new minds to solve these new problems that hadn't been solved yet, or at least try to challenge to do that. And I can see now how that's been really important for the work that Earthwork has been doing in not just in Morwell, but across the valley, and how the story is being told through the media. Because every time I see something, I get really excited and I go, oh my gosh, we need more of that. Not just in Gippsland, we need more of that across regional Victoria, regional Australia, because as we kind of look at this donut economy model, that's shifting away from us just mass producing, selling to overseas markets. I can't help but think
the Australian way.
but I can't help but think that what you guys are doing makes so much sense for this local circular economy, donut economy, futuristic, future-proofing.
Yeah, because if we don't to me, we've just got to stop feeding the beast. Yeah. Step out of their, like, handing over your life to the multinationals, handing over your livelihood to the multinationals. Yeah. It's not necessary anymore. Like, we don't have to chase the six-figure income, which is, a big thing to chase. I'm on the 6 figures or I'm the 7 figures. It's like, maybe life could be about, that sense of building something local that's not doing any of the damage. It's actually being part of the solution and participating in the solution in your daily life, in the paying the rent, paying for your food way, so that the whole of that mechanism that we have to do, like this part of participation with the capitalist capacity, we're still paying rent, right? So we still need to eat, to buy it, to eat. So if you're going to participate, if we're going to be doing that and going to have the jobs, then maybe those jobs don't have to be so extractive and exploitative and big multinationals. Maybe they can be far more closer to home, building things that matter, building things that make it the next difference. And we've got some incredible solar arrays and wind farms coming up in lovely community levels, yeah. And the other one that Earthwork is part of is Cooperative Power, which is a group across the whole of this country of unions and mutuals that have basically got together their membership groups so that they're all buying power from Cooperative Power. So if you're a member, you get to buy power from Cooperative Power. And my understanding of the intention of Cooperative Power is then to go and sign up all of those small renewable crews, right? Because that'll be the other part of Cooperative Power, is that all of those gorgeous community level, and farmers figuring out, hey, that paddock that's, ain't never going to have cattle on it again now, could have a whole array of solar, could have a whole array of wind on the hill on the top. Yeah, there's all sorts of things that are taking place that we can keep doing the work.
Well, and I might open up to some questions now, Catherine. And before we do that, I'll turn off the live stream. I just want to say thank you very much for taking the time to chat with us today around the work that you're doing with the Earthworker Cooperative, and for really giving the cooperative model voice today that we're going to talk loudly about through social media to make sure that people can walk away going, that's what it is. That's what a co-op is.
Yeah. It's everything. Yeah, it's everything a company is, but better.